Hi folks, and welcome back to the Sketchup tutorials. In the last video, we explored the Follow Me tool. As you can see here, I've kind of completed the task I gave you all at the end of the video. I hope you guys had fun playing around with the Follow Me tool, as well as with the other tools that we've learned so far. But that's what we should have. You might have deleted out the center piece, just like that, so it looks a little bit like that. But if you haven't, it's all fine and dandy. What we're going to do is we're going to save this and we are going to move on to our next project. Now, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or feel free to message me. We're going to move on and we're going to create a new file. Now, one thing you'll notice if you haven't done this already is we're going to make sure when we go into settings that our default template is in architectural feet and inches. So when we go to new, we're going to create a new one for our model home. We're going to name this, go to SketchUp, and we're going to call this model home. Press enter. All right. Now, the initial measurements I had were in millimeters, and that's because I do a lot of 3D modeling and 3D printing, which requires some metric measurements, especially for my slicer. But for the sake of this project, and since we're going to be measuring a lot of things in feet and inches, I changed my general settings. So what you're going to notice, let's say I'm going to start off with the base of my blueprint. Let's say I'm going to create something that is, so I press the rectangle tool, which is R. I click in the origin, and then I'm going to start off with something that is 40 feet, 40 feet. And that's just apostrophe. Now you can see the template is pretty large and that's exactly what we want it. And let's say we want to push pull this. We press P and we push pull. And then let's say we want 10-foot ceilings. See, 10 inches. I have to say 10 feet. Alrighty. So there's our dude, probably around 5'5" or something like that, 6 foot maybe. And we have our 10-foot ceilings and we are looking good. Now there's a couple things we can do. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start dividing this home up. I'm going to do midpoint to midpoint and then midpoint to here. And the reason why is I'm actually going to get rid of this section. I'm going to push pull this all the way down. And you'll notice as I get it all the way to the bottom, you see how it's half gray, half white. That's because it's saying that the surface is meeting the interior surface. So when we deleted that front edge, it'll disappear. If we delete this edge right here, you'll notice the inside is a dark gray and the outside is a white. So when we push pull this, what it's doing is it's meeting the outside surface with the inner surface, which means that it's collapsing on itself, which means that it will delete itself. And so that's what happens there and why that happens. I'm going to get rid of that line. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because I want to show you guys a neat trick, which is how to build a roof. Now, I'm going to take the line tool and I'm going to take the midpoint from here to here and just draw it perfectly across. Again, from this side over here. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm following the guide axes, which is the red and the green. And I'm going to delete these two lines here. Just click on them and press backspace. Now, we're going to be using the move tool in a way that we haven't used before. And the way we're going to use it is we're going to highlight this line using the selection tool, press spacebar to get to it. And then we're going to hold shift and highlight this one too. So now what it's done is it's highlighted the spline of our roof, and I'm going to press the M key. And when I click on it, it's going to allow me to move it. But I want to move it upward, and this is a little harder to do because it is in freeform mode. Now, if I press the up key, watch what happens. It locks into the blue axis. And that's really useful because it allows me to now dictate which axis and how high I want to move it. And so if I'm in a very snowy area, I'd want a little bit more of a steep roof. And if I'm more in a sunny and, pretty warm climate, I could have a less sloped roof. And so, yeah, let's choose something moderate and go somewhere in the middle. Let's choose that right there at about 7 feet. So I'm going to type in 7 feet and press enter. And there we go. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to be locked into this position. If I press move again and I click on it, remember, I can press the left key and watch what happens. It locks me into the green axis. If I press the right key, It locks me into the red axis. So you can see that that's pretty neat. And if I just want to undo it, I just press escape and it'll undo everything I've done. But I just wanted to show you that it doesn't necessarily mean you're locked in that you're locked only into that one particular axis, but that you have the option to be locked into an axis to help you with your 3D modeling. All right, so that's looking pretty good so far. Now, another thing I can do to help give this a little bit more dimension is if I come here on the bottom, I'll click on it. I'm going to press F for offset. I'm going to click on it once. Oops. Click on it once, and then I'm going to type in 6, well, let's say 4 inches. So type in 4, press enter, and you'll see here I have this border. I'm going to push pull that all the way up. Oh, it created 2 borders. Excuse me. So F, when I first clicked it, I accidentally must have created a separate version of it. I'm going to press push, pull, P, and oops, and I'm going to push it all the way up. Alrighty. So that gives me a little bit of a lip on the outside of my roof, and that looks pretty good. So we have the beginnings of our house here, and now you might be saying, well, if I wanted to make this house a little bit more complex, feel free to do so. All you would need to do is just rewind our steps, Control Z, all the way back to around here. Continue to build out the house. So for example, let's say over here, we wanted to find the midpoint of this side and push pull this out another, let's say 40 feet. Oops, not 40 inches. 40 feet. And we wanted an elongated house. We can kind of do the same thing. Find the midpoint, draw it all the way over here, delete this, and then just highlight all of these pieces, press M, click on it, and then press the up key, and then type in 7 feet. And we have our house there. So if you want something that's a little bit longer and a little bit more spacious, you can do that too. For the sake of this video, we can just leave it like that. I just wanted to show you in case you wanted to customize this as you saw fit. And then again, we're going to come down here, click, and we're going to type in 4 inches. And then we're going to take this surface and we're going to push pull that all the way up. There we go. Super. Alrighty. So if this is our house, let's say that our garage will be on this back left side over here, and that our front door and stuff will be over here. So what we've done just now is we've just created the basic layout of our house. And so let's get started with a door. So let's put our front door here, and obviously feel free to design this however you'd like. There are no real design constraints. I'm just designing it how I think it would look. So I'm gonna start off with a door that is 4 feet by, 4 feet, comma, 8 feet. So the way I do this, remember, I'm gonna start all over again. I press the R tool, I click on where I wanna start, and I type in 4, apostrophe, comma, 8 apostrophe, and enter. So now I've just created a 4 foot by 8 foot door. If I want to create a frame for this, if I press F, you'll notice that it creates it outside of that frame. If I try to create on the inside, it doesn't look exactly right. It looks like more like, oh, if this was a window door, this would look right. So what you can do with the offset tool is pretty neat. If I hold down the mouse key and shift at the same time and select each of these separately, and only select these 3 sides and then press F, check that out. That's pretty neat, right? So if I wanted to build this, let's say probably around 4 inches. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I've just now created a door frame. I can push pull that out just a little bit or in, but since it's a door frame, that looks pretty neat. So that's a little tip trick to get you guys a door frame, and that's starting to look good. The next thing we want to do, and we're not going to get into too much detail because we're going to keep this pretty simple. We're going to build a doorknob, nothing fancy, just something that has a little dimension so we know what it is. Alrighty, So we've just taken that circle, push pulled it out, and there we go. We have our door. Now, you can get fancy, obviously. Feel free to do whatever you'd like, but for the sake of this video, we're going to just practice what we've learned so far in order to create what we are set out to do, which is just to build a model home, nothing too fancy, but just to get our feet wet with a lot of the tools that we've learned. So the next thing on our house that I would want is a relatively large window. Now, some of you might be asking or thinking, well, if I really wanted to plan this out, let's say you're thinking about remodeling your home or you're actually thinking about having precise measurements, this is where that tape measure tool will come in handy. And so the way you could use this is you click on it, and then let's say from this edge of this door, let's say 10 feet from it is where you wanted to build the beginning of your window. Oops, that's 10 inches. I gotta refrain from just typing in 10 and pressing enter. So what that does is it creates this dotted line, and you can delete it at any time. Just select it and press delete. But what it does is says this line demarcates this distance from this back edge of this door. And that says that this is exactly 10 feet away. Now that I know that that's 10 feet away, let's say I want the window to be 2 feet from the ground and 2 feet from the top of the roof. So I can use the tape measure tool again, press T, and I just select this bottom edge and I go up 2 feet. And then from this top edge, I can come down 2 feet. And there we go. And now I can start building my rectangular window. And let's say I want it to be 10 feet long. And there we go. So I've just built a window that I've plotted out and measured precisely exactly where I wanted things. And I can leave these dotted lines or I can delete them. I'll leave them just now, just for the sake of this video. But yeah, let's continue on. So I have this window. Now let's look at framing it. So I have this window. It's looking good so far. Now let's frame it just like we did with the door. Except this time, let's go inward. So we click and we move in, and let's say we frame it 3 inches, quotation marks. Alrighty, looking pretty good. Now I could leave this as like a bay window, relatively just one large window pane. Let's have it come out 1 inch. Or I could divide it up and make it a little bit more fancy. Let's say, actually before I push pull that out, I'm gonna Control Z that. I'm actually going to divide this window from the midpoints, and you can obviously do this however you'd like. You can divide it into 3s or 4s or however you'd like. But I'm going to just section off these windows. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because of this. I'm going to offset each of these windows even further, just by like 1 inch. I'm going to press offset again, F, and double click. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow me to repeat whatever I just did on another window on this one. So it's just repeating it when I double click after using a certain tool. It'll allow me to repeat that. Now, the reason why I did that is because it's going to allow me to do something pretty neat, and that is this. I'm going to choose all of these cross sections that I built, as well as this frame, and it's going to allow me to, I'm just going to double click this frame, and it'll highlight anything connected to it. And the reason why I did that is this. Now, if I push pull this out, 1 inch, it allows me to have all of these already pre-framed. That's pretty neat. I like the way that looks. It's looking good. Let's move on. So what I'm going to do here on the back side is I'm going to create another door here. And it's going to be 4 feet by 8 feet again. Whoa, what happened? Blah. Hold on, let's click out. Okay, there we go. 4 feet, comma, 8 feet. There we go. I'm going to select these 3. Oops. If I select that, just click it again and it'll deselect it, holding the shift key. I'm going to offset it 3 inches. Alrighty, I'm going to pull out a little doorknob here. Again, doesn't have to be super precise. I'm going to push pull this out a little bit. And I'm going to push pull this out a little bit. Nothing too crazy. And then over here, I'll build a really nice Large panoramic window. That looks good. Light offset, 3 inches. And let's pull that out. All right. For the sake of this video, I'm not being super nitpicky about my details for the house, but I just wanted to show you guys how you can get started. You can put windows on the roof, so if you wanted some sun windows. But we're going to move on now to the materials. So I told you we'd come back to this portion, and that is the materials on this left side. So now, if you notice, you'll see that we have a number of different things. And so I'm going to go to roofing. And I'm going to choose, let's say, these. And watch what happens. If I selecting my roof pieces, it allows me to apply this textured pattern to my roof. It looks pretty good. Now I can also, if I wanted to make my house out of stone or whatever it is, I can choose to do that. Let's say if I wanted to make it out of brick, I could do that. So if I wanted a brick colored house, I can do that. So you can start seeing it being pieced together. If you're not a fan of brick, feel free not to choose brick. You can choose some siding material. So if you like some siding, boop, 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 we have that available too. Feel free to kind of peruse and choose the objects and items you like throughout here. The last thing I'm going to show just before I kind of finish off here, and before we start kind of wrapping this video up, since it's kind of getting a little bit long, is the glass portion. And this is really neat because this looks really awesome once we start creating it. And so I'm going to just choose this glass and watch what happens. Once you create and you click on an object to become glass, it'll actually become transparent. And so you can see inside of our house. And so you can see how SketchUp can be very useful for things like architecture. And so I just wanted to show you guys that this is definitely a possibility. And so feel free to just kind of play around and learn how this all works. And yeah, just to have fun with what you're doing. Alrighty, so I'm gonna basically just wrap this video up for now because it's getting a little bit long. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed playing around with SketchUp and starting to build your model home. Feel free to just kind of play around and build out your house. And you know what, if you want, you can even throw out some grass. So like, for example, let's make it a little bit larger of a yard. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And then let's also have a driveway that we can also build our garage. So let us have some stone for our thing, and then landscaping. Do we have grass? Yes, we do. There we go. Alrighty, and so obviously here I could just build a rectangle and build our garage here. I could frame it just like we did with the other one. F. Push pull that out a little bit. Alrighty, and then yeah, I think the garage looks fine. Or we could change the thing. Let's say let's change to maybe a metal garage. There we go. Alrighty. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up. And you can see how you can really take this a little bit further, really, make it really nice. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed building your home in SketchUp, and I'll see you guys in the next one.